I'm going to call this evening's meeting of the Moorhead Public Service Commission to order. Could I have a motion, please, concerning our agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Apparently David seconded that.
No, I'm for it.
Rolf did?
He did.
Okay. Could I have a similar motion concerning the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Brings us down to customers to be heard. Mr. General Manager, on a temporary basis, any customers to be heard?
Seeing none, hearing none.
Okay. Remember to have your microphone on, please. Yeah. Any recognitions?
None at this time.
Okay. Any old business?
Nope.
Okay. That brings us, John.
I'm not sure if this would be in the old business, but we talked briefly last month, or last meeting, was that the status of the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Did that matter get reviewed and resolved?
Yes, as of late Friday afternoon, MRES actually submitted our filing or a response back to their questions that they did have. So we'll hopefully hear within about a week or so of that.
Did that answer your question? Okay. Members of the City Council, do you have something to report?
The City Council met for our annual retreat, council retreat last night, and we did some discussion about land policy, purchasing land, different things like that, some partnership options that we think are possibilities with the city and MPS, but it really is probably something we can discuss during executive session because it will flow along those lines.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Anything further? Okay, thank you, Heidi. Members of the Public Service Commission, I would like to make a couple of comments. Last evening, I was able to attend the Moorhead Spring Orchestra concert led by Mr. Brian Cole at Fargo Assembly of God Church, and I can tell you that they did an absolutely fabulous job. There had to be over 1,000 people, probably 2,000 people in attendance. The music was extraordinary, and just my hats off to Mr. Cole and the people at Moorhead Schools for the wonderful work they do. It's absolutely amazing. They've got about 600 kids involved in string orchestra. We should be proud of them, and if you ever get the opportunity to go to their spring concert, take it, because you'll be hugely surprised by what it is they're able to do. Any other members of the Public Service Commission? That's easy. Mr. General Manager.
There's actually no general manager report
Really?
this evening.
And you think you're going to get by with that?
I know. I have.
You're doing very good at filling in for Bill because he always defers to everybody else anyway. Okay. That brings us down to item 8E, which is to accept a report on emergency power to facilities in Moorhead. Who's taking this?
I'll actually speak to this.
Are you taking this as the head of our electric division or as general manager?
As the head of the electric division.
Okay. I don't know, is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Basically, a few months ago, we actually put a GM report together for this. Dave requested a little more information, a little more discussion on it, so we brought back a full report on it. Back in 2011, we commissioned the Centennial Generating Station. Prior to that, with some planning with the commission that we had at that point in time, they requested, some type of a planning or facilities plan to make sure we had emergency power to certain sites within the city of Moorhead. This came about because of all the flooding issues that we had going on at that point in time. Since 2010, we have done basically 5 projects from 2010 to 2013, connecting facilities underground to give them a more reliable power source just due to maybe high winds or ice storms or something like that. We spent about $530,000 of our budgets that we had within those years to complete these projects. I've also got a map attached of projects that we did in those areas. But basically, we provided power to the Moorhead High School, Horizon Middle School, with one project, which will now actually provide power to the new elementary school that's going to be out in Horizon Shores area as well. Another project we completed gave underground power to Concordia College, Eventide, and also feeding our river intake site. We did some redundancy, 2 projects that fixed some redundancy problems with MSUM, and then we also made sure we've got some ability to provide power to our dispatch site, which hopefully no longer is needed because we have our own generator on that site.
Okay. Any questions of Travis?
I do.
Okay.
So do we have any plans to extend that? I mean, do we have any plans to go, for example, south with the new schools? I noticed, and we talked about this in the last meeting as well, there's no fire or police station that seems to be connected unless they have their own supply. And I don't know, what about City Hall? Do we have emergency supply to City Hall, or do we move them all to the dispatch center at that point?
Good, very good question. Right now, with the overhead lines that we have connecting some of those facilities, it makes it very difficult to provide power. It's really easy for us to provide power out of our Centennial substation. You know, getting it to the other subs and out is a little more cumbersome to do, but it's possible. So, you know, we're kind of, as new facilities come in, we'll look at them on an as-needed basis. We'll probably end up taking some of the, I should say, probably moving City Hall staff or people out to the dispatch site or other sites that are available. And I think the police department is looking at some type of on-site generation for that facility as well with their new EOC that they're working on.
What about things like the jail? I mean, if the power goes out, are there doors all opening and all of a sudden we have people running around? Or?
I would suspect that the security is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just kidding, but I mean, do they have power, for example? I mean, in that instance, do we provide them?
I'm not sure what their plans look like. I've seen some of the initial planning on the EOC and the jail. I don't know how much generation they would have or if any is possible, so at all.
You know, at one time, there was a large generator at the old St. Ansgar site, and I don't know if that's still functional or if it still operates. That site is now owned by Clay County.
Yeah. For the load management side of stuff, we don't operate that generator at all, so I don't know if it's still in commission or not. I can't answer that question.
Might be worthwhile to check into that because it was a substantial generator, as I recollect. David?
Travis, how is the conversation coordinated between us and police and so forth as those kinds of questions are raised, so that moving forward that planning effort, you know, has some coordination to it, as opposed to we'll catch up with the details, you know, when we're looped in or
Sure.
How does that work?
Usually, you know, Chris and myself will get invited to some of these planning, or Joe as well, into some of the planning meetings that they have, like we have just done with the schools as well. So, you know, they'll ask a bunch of questions or ask for information on what type of supplies we got and stuff like that, or engineering will, to try to figure out what's best to do in that area. So.
Okay.
I mean, do we know, for example, whether the city's emergency plan for locating people, if there's a big emergency, matches with the places where we provide power? I mean, for example, we don't want to have a situation where the city says, listen, one of our sites is going to be the new elementary school in South Moorhead, and lo and behold, that's not one that we have hooked up. So do they know, does the city know what we have covered and what we don't have covered?
Yes, I would believe so. We actually talked with Mike and Bob and Wanda a few weeks ago about this and making sure that they were aware of the, you know, what we're trying to do as well. And I think that they were on board within their emergency operations plan of being able to feed sites with some power.
Do any of those facilities have their own separate generation?
Like the colleges and stuff like that?
I know the colleges do. I'm talking about the school system.
If they have any, it's for emergency power only, and even the college is very minimal. So.
And maybe we should mention too, that's by our background. I mean, the worst case scenario is all the outside power supply goes down, right? We have no outside power, and we have to rely on the Centennial Station, which is right next to Moorhead with hockey. Now, do we have, with what we have hooked up so far, we still have capacity, right?
Yes, we should. I mean, it depends on what you're going to be feeding at the colleges and stuff. We'd have to look at and watch our loading to make sure that we were covered, but yeah, you'd have to spend a little bit more time investigating, making sure how much capacity we would have left, but we would try to do something where if we needed to do rolling blackouts or rolling power, we would do it that way as well.
Thanks.
Who coordinates all these activities? As I recollect during the floods, was it the county that had, was that where the actual direction of what we do on an emergency basis was handled, unless you were around at that time?
When I was part of it, it was the Emergency Operations Center, which is generally staffed by the county, the Sheriff's Department, one of the deputies.
Yeah, police and fire are also involved with that as well.
Very, very much so.
Moorhead Police and Fire are also included in that too. So it's all, the city's got their own emergency operations plan, and then we have our emergency operations plan for our facilities and sites as well.
Are we sure, and I think it was a good question that Rolf was asking, are we sure that our plan meshes with their plan in terms of having those capabilities of providing electric service?
I know our water and electric sites are included in, based off certain levels in a flooding situation that, they know what levels our facilities are at in case there is an issue.
Well, even beyond the flooding
Yep.
situation, let's say tornado comes through town, or any one of those catastrophes that can befall us. Are we coordinated with them sufficiently that we know that we can control that electric service?
That's, I'll probably have to get back with you on that one.
Okay.
I think we should be able to, but we're pretty meshed with that in emergency situations. It's all hands on deck, so.
Okay.
But we can get you an answer on that.
So the one project we're going to do is we're going to hook up the new elementary school in Horizon Shores, right? That's
Yep.
going to be hooked up next. Okay.
Yep, there'll be some switching there and stuff like that, but we'll definitely should be able to provide emergency power to that.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept Travis's report, now that we've grilled him?
I move to accept item 8E.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That brings us to item 9, is to approve interconnection agreement for Concordia College greenhouse solar installation. What is this about?
So last fall, or last year, Concordia College requested to put some solar on on their new greenhouse that they've got. And through that, they wanted to tie into our existing system, so we needed them to sign an interconnection agreement so that they can get some cost back on that.
Okay.
So I'm going to have Dennis come up and
Come on up,
explain it
Dennis.
away.
And while Dennis is coming up here, so far what they're proposing to do fits in with our policies?
Correct, it does. It's a nice little site. I was actually out when they were commissioning it. It looks good.
Okay.
Hello, Dennis Eisenbrown, Energy Services Manager. Yes, as Travis said, this is a pretty standard agreement that we have with customers who want to connect the renewable energy equipment on our system. And it provides essentially two functions. One, there's a safety aspect, so we know that it's there, and that the way that the electric is converted from DC to AC, it operates in such a way that they can never backfeed into the system. And so that's a safety issue for us. And the other is that because Missouri River is our all requirements supplier, they need to be a part of this agreement, so they need to know what's going in and out. And so it's a standard agreement that was produced by Missouri River. We tweaked it, and John reviewed it, and we've made it basically our document. And this is a really good, straightforward application.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve item 9.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. It brings us down to item 10.
Hold on a second.
Whoa.
I just realized I am technically employed by Concordia because I'm teaching.
You've got a job?
Yeah, they're paying me for it too.
Well, as I understand, Mr. Bolger can correct us, but as I understand the rules and regulations with regard to potential for conflict of interest, you can certainly step away if you like to, but I don't think you've got a financial interest in this
No, I don't.
particular matter.
I don't think he has a financial. I don't think there's a financial interest. If you'd feel more comfortable doing it,
No,
you can.
there's no interest at all. Just want to bring it up. Sorry.
But you do have a job.
I do have a job.
Okay.
I pay taxes.
And I think that motion passed. Okay. Item 10. Award bid for installation of a concrete driveway at the Water Division Operations Building.
I'll speak to this, and I can have Joe come up if necessary. So a few weeks back, we requested plans and specs be approved and authorized for advertisement. We received 5 qualified bids on this, the lowest being $138,330, which was about $12,000 less than the engineer's estimate, or what we expected the cost to be for constructing this concrete driveway in the basically Water Division Operations Building. However, it's got a bunch of electric facilities and equipment out or within the fenced area of that site. So we're building this just so we don't rut up the yard, and it makes it a little bit easier to work around there.
Okay. Discussion? Questions? Could I have a motion, please, concerning item 10?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Brings us down to item 14. This is refreshing. It's to approve a change order, number 1 for I-94 and 12th Street South, water main relocation project.
So I'll have
I
Chris
couldn't
come
help
up-
myself, Travis.
I know. I'll have Chris come up and speak to this, but it's just a change order for crossing the interstate.
Before he starts that, should we have taken item 16 first? Never mind.
Chris Knutson, Water Division Manager.
Excuse me. In response to your question, let's make sure he does it right the first time. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. This is change order number 1 for the I-94 and 12th Street water main relocation project. And as you remember, as part of the Diverging Diamond Interchange project, which will be coming this summer on the 8th Street and I-94 interchange, we have to lower the water main at that particular location. As part of that project, we have to get our water main lowered. We actually received really favorable bids back in the fall, about $24,000 under the engineer's estimate. So after the bids were let, we discussed with the contractor adding 60 feet of casing. So the water main, it has to be, because it goes under I-94, has to be in steel casing. The steel casing is really a very expensive component of the project. So we were very conservative in the initial design in terms of how much casing was in the project. After the bids were let and we received favorable bids, we discussed adding 60 feet of additional casing on the north side, so that would push the bore pit away from the shoulder of I-94. So right now, they'd actually be working right off the northern shoulder of I-94 to put that new water main and new casing in. So we'll just push it 60 feet north if this change order is approved.
Given what's going to be happening over there, how long is this going to be under construction?
The deadline is I believe the deadline is end of June, June 30th, 2016, for final completion. MnDOT's aware of what we're doing. We've talked about this particular change order with MnDOT. Actually, they'll be ordering the casing once this is approved by the City Council, I believe on the 14th. So we're hoping to get it done right away in May, hopefully, and make sure that we're out of the way of the DDI project, because it's going to be a pretty significant project with some pretty significant traffic interruptions as detailed, I believe, in Sunday's forum.
Yeah. Are we going to close down the, I don't know what the frontage road on the north side of I-94?
Yes. We'll be detouring around that frontage road. I can't remember that particular
Because
street,
we should try to make sure that we don't detour that while 8th Street is closed.
Yeah.
Because that would be messier than
Yep,
estimate.
for the tech school too. We've talked about that. We're hoping that we can find a sweet spot in there to get that, because that detour represents, there's a lot of traffic that takes that particular area, that particular
Have you
frontage
been in
road.
communication with the tech school?
Say that again?
Have you been in communication with the tech school with regard to that issue?
We haven't, but we've talked to some of the, Muscatel will also be affected by this on the southern side. We haven't talked to the tech school yet about it.
That may be something we want to address with them so they can make sure that their students are aware of what's going to be a problem area.
Yep, we can certainly do that.
Chris, was this a design shortcoming from the get-go? Is this something that we should have anticipated? It seems like the contractor has come to us with this proposal and so forth, and I just wonder if it's something that we could have foreseen prior to the bidding processes and so forth.
It's just, the casing was like $275 a foot, so we had to be very conservative because we only, in MnDOT's agreement with Moorhead Public Service, we were only given $260,000.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario from my perspective would be to exceed that amount, to go over that amount, because MPS wouldn't be reimbursed for that expense.
Yeah.
In this particular scenario, the change order would be fully reimbursed by MnDOT. So
I see.
it's at no expense to MPS.
Will we have any disruption of services as a result of this?
No, it'll just be, in general, or as a result of the change order, I guess.
Either way.
There will be some disruption of services, although we've written the specifications such that they can only do the tie-ins at certain times of day, either in the late evening or early morning, because that 12-inch water main actually represents a pretty good amount of system capacity for Southern Moorhead, so we can't have that shut down for very long. The time periods are very, the windows are very short, within a few hours each shutdown. So in terms of customer impacts, I don't think there will be a lot of customer impacts, but we're in the process of sending out mailers, and we've got a customer list ready to go. We just haven't, just waiting a little bit so people don't forget it. In terms of when the project actually starts, but it'll be going out here at end of March. Some of the notifications will be.
Are we having any public meetings with regard to those?
They've had some public meetings for the DDI project. I have not planned or scheduled any meetings in particular relevant to this project. Certainly, it's an option, but I know they're probably, I'm not positive. I know they're going to award the project, but I don't know if they plan to hold any public meetings relevant to the DDI project as a whole. I think that would be a useful thing, but that's MnDOT's project. We could certainly, if they do hold one, we would definitely be at that meeting.
Okay, so who would this impact negatively?
It'll impact the people on the frontage road between 12th and 14th Avenue, I believe there. Those folks, there may be some water shut down for those folks, and the traffic detour around that would be the negative impact for those folks.
Okay.
Because this is not the only line that goes south, right? We're not going to shut South Moorhead off.
No, there's 3 lines. It's probably a third of all the water that goes to South Moorhead goes through this water main. So it's a significant water main that we don't want down long term.
So the plan basically is you put the pipe in, you bore it, you put the casing in, whatever it is, and then at some point you tie it together. It's not going to be a 4-week project to tie them all together.
Right, no, it would be hours.
Okay. Any other questions? Could I have a motion, please, concerning item 14?
Move approval of 14.
And a second before the project is even done.
Right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. Next is item 15, which is to approve an agreement to provide water services.
So,
Who's speaking to this one?
Yep, I'll have Nancy speak to this. Back in 1999, I wasn't employed here yet, but we had a water service with a customer north of the Oakport annexation area that has since lapsed, and we are just updating that agreement, so it ended in 2015. Nancy?
Nancy Lund, Admin and Finance Manager. So when the Oakport Joint Powers Agreement was still in place, the 4 bodies that participated in that, the city, Oakport, Clay County, and Moorhead Public Service, granted water service to a residence just outside of Track 2. Basically being a good neighbor, the water main was close enough, he hooked up, he paid the additional fees, and since that time, that customer has been paying outside the city water rates, just as everyone else in Track 2 did. And with the annexation of Track 2 into Moorhead the 1st of 2015, this agreement lapsed in July of 2015, so we need to have a new agreement in place to continue serving this customer and being a good neighbor again and providing them with our services.
And I see that this particular agreement was drafted by the city attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay. So they have no problems with it?
No, no.
Okay.
Nope, it's a open-ended, there's no expiration on the contract, so we would plan to continue serving him water as long as he needs that for his residents.
Okay. Is there a motion concerning item 15?
I move to approve it.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. That brings us down to the item that Les was concerned about a few moments ago, which is to approve a policy on contract change orders, work change directives, and supplemental agreements, which apparently Chris did a pretty good job on when he had his here a few moments ago. So who's going to speak to this?
I'll have Nancy speak to this again. So basically, we put a policy based off the discussion we've had over the past couple meetings to come up with a policy that fits your guys' requests. Nancy?
So we have turned this into a commission policy so that you're assured that you'll see the change orders that are of significant value. So what we've put into here, based on discussion from the last commission meeting, was the commission will see and will approve change orders that exceed the lesser of 5% of the original construction contract or $100,000. So you'll be seeing those. It basically means if we've got a $2 million project, you're going to see the change orders over 100,000 on those.
Okay.
And smaller ones at 5%, you'll begin seeing those change orders too.
And it will be a cumulative kind of a thing?
Cumulative change
Okay.
orders, yes.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Anderson, do you have something you want to say concerning this issue?
I thought it captured what our concerns were rather well, and I'm fully in favor of it.
Okay.
Absolutely. It does address that lack of communication that we had with that earlier situation, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody
Very
else have any
helpful.
questions?
I move to approve item 16.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That brings us down to item 17.
I think John expected me.
Well, we've grown not to know what to expect, as a matter of fact. But it brings us down to item 17, which is to close our meeting for an executive session. This is as permitted by Minnesota statute, section 13D05, subdivision 3C, to discuss the acquisition of property at 519 Elm Street South in Moorhead and other parcels of real property. This is a continuation of prior discussions, and I do believe that there will be action taken on this matter when we are through discussing it. Is that correct? Okay. Could I have a motion, please, to go into closed session?
I move we go into closed session and resume here for any action required.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. We are now in closed session. Thank you.
Stacy Day, second. Yeah.
He's the parliamentarian. You want to argue with Les?
I'm going to vote twice.
Okay.
Please do.
I will? Okay.
Okay, if I can call us back into open session, please. Are they ready with the camera? Everything ready?
I think when we're already on, yeah.
Okay, well, we're back in open session. I believe that we have something to report out of our closed session and a resolution. Casey? Please. Well, we've got it, and I don't think you have to read it verbatim, but you can certainly read the action that was taken.
Read it.
No, read it.
Read it.
Read it.
Why don't you read it, Casey?
Okay, I'll read it. There was a motion to approve a request to the Moorhead City Council for the dedication and restrictive use of approximately 7 acres of land near the Opportunity Substation for the benefit and use of Moorhead Public Service in accordance with the terms of the drafted resolution and its attached dedication and restrictive covenants.
Okay?
I move that motion.
I
Okay.
second it.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries. I want to publicly thank both of our liaisons for assisting us in this process. Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.